Deanna. Okay.
Hey.
Indiana, you don't see us, right?
Yes, I do.
Oh, you do? Oh, okay, that's weird. Okay, let's see. But
And
you
then
see us through the owl?
a moment ago, there was like a split screen, but now it's just one, and I only see you guys.
Um, Let me try something.
And thank you for volunteering to take minutes. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I will, Catherine and the team, they've prepared a really awesome template for minutes.
Oh, okay, great.
That should help with kind of, the process. I'll share that with you
Okay.
probably tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And now I see two, like a split screen. Perfect.
So the owl, let's see if the owl moves. I'm like, owl. Okay, did work. Okay, good.
Oh, goodness.
All right, by the way, we
Okay.
updated the sign-in sheet.
Okay.
So, I mean, just so you know, so that way, we have to fix it so it says the exemptions here, but then just check
Okay.
off the Zoom and whatever excuse you.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think it's pretty much going to be me. Everyone else just said that they
Let me see
are
the
able to
light.
make
I
it.
don't know where it's
Yeah, I was trying to figure out the light situation. Hi, William. Okay, looks like it is there.
Let's turn it off just for a second.
Sure. I can't hear you, William.
OHPD is presenting remote.
Yes, yeah.
They're presenting an RFP for inlet.
Yeah, there's a presentation slide deck there.
Yeah.
That's the exact thought. You guys have gotten really lucky with the presentation.
We're figuring out our
Perfect. Oh, there we
light
go.
situation. Oh, there we go. You can see it.
All right.
William, I still can't hear you. It shows that you're not muted.
Can you
so
hear
I'm
me
not-
now?
Yes. Now I can. Great.
Okay, sorry.
Get comfortable with that.
Yeah, I had to download Zoom. Our remote.
Oh. I can't hear you again. Uh-oh. Oh, now you're muted. Let's see. Still can't hear you. Not sure what's going on.
You don't see us, right? Oh, you do? Oh, okay, that.
Hold on. I don't. I'm so confused right now. What am I seeing?
Owl?
A moment ago, there was like a split screen, but now it's just one, and I only see you guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me now?
For yeah, health and environment's in the other area. Hey. Yes, I can
Yes,
hear you
hear me
now.
now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I will, Catherine and the team, they prepare a really awesome template for minutes.
Oh, okay, great.
That
Something
should
weird
help,
just happened.
the process. I'll share that with you, probably tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I think the recording was like playing in the background. I'm so confused right now. Okay. Hello. Thank you for joining. Come on in. please feel free to sign in and please have a seat here because I think it's just going to be us in person, honestly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of our members unfortunately are joining remotely, so
Gotcha.
it's plenty of space. Get comfortable.
Okay,
Quickly use the restroom.
Not a problem.
yeah.
Can I just check if Melissa and Ulysses can hear me? I know Willie was having some issues with audio.
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay, great. And I can hear you, Melissa. Nice to see you
Great.
again.
Thanks, good to see you.
I just realized that we started
I
at
can hear the other one.
7. I could have come in person. I thought we were starting at 6:30. I'm so sorry.
No.
I'm so sorry. I was planning on being there, but I thought I was running late.
No, it's fine. No, we're usually 7 o'clock. Every
And I did the
Thursday
opposite
of every
thing.
month.
I did the opposite thing yesterday, which was my other committee. I thought it was 7 and it starts at 6:30.
All good, all good. Okay, I see Jay's here. We'll wait for a few more members to join. And I'm just gonna check my
Are you guys
email.
able to hear me now?
Yes, I can hear
Okay.
you.
Yeah,
Much-
I just had to exit out of my remote desktop. For some reason, it's not allowing me to use my audio.
Okay. William, I'm probably going to will you present the slides or one of your other colleagues?
Are you able to do 2 presenters or?
I should be able to make you co-host, which is what I was going to do. So that way you can
Yeah.
share your screen if that's easier. Is that fine?
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Okay. And we've actually printed the slide deck for those of us in person here. So I have it here. Slide version here. Let me see. Okay. Great. Looks like your co-host. We're gonna probably wait a few more minutes so that we have a few more members join. Right now we only have 3 members and that includes me. So we'll just wait a few more minutes if that's okay, and then we'll get started.
Not a problem at all.
So we can sit at the big table here.
Please do. I'm lonely here. It's just me. Actually, I'm just gonna fill up my water bottle while we wait. Hello,
How you doing?
good, how are you?
This, not health and environment, right?
No, yeah, health and environment is in the other room. Yes. I got excited. I thought we had someone else.
It's got room.
Yeah, usually health and environment are in here and housing were over there, so I think that's why and members and community members are slightly confused. I mean, I was too. I walked into the wrong meeting. Wherever you'd like.
Maybe interesting, Inwood site, HPD is going to an RFP on the Inwood site. We can see what that's all about. God, there's a whole bunch of HPD people on it. I put in our vote for the uh,
The number 2.
number 2.
Yeah.
Yes, I called everybody. And
Okay,
Ted,
it's okay. I'm just gonna probably wait, until
Ted said he'll go with our
7:10,
recommendation.
and then,
All right.
I'll recommend that we get started. So if we can just wait.
Until what time?
7:10, so we're 3 more minutes.
Okay.
Hopefully more members will trickle in online. Um, You have another copy of the agenda as well? Wonderful, great. And I think Catherine has the presentation set up on that laptop.
Okay.
Oh.
I did the same thing, Steve. You're in the other section, the other room. And so once it's time for you to present, you can
I can
just
go up there.
go
Perfect.
there. It should be set up, so,
Okay.
now we'll figure it out, but yeah. Got another minute and then we'll start. Okay, I suggest that we start. It's 7:08. We cannot formally call the meeting to order because we do not have quorum. And I don't think we will have quorum, just because of the new open meetings law, which requires members to be in person. However, we can still kind of receive the presentation and kind of hear. But as a committee, we cannot vote on anything. And so if there's any kind of need for a vote, it would have to be tabled until the January meeting. So with that, just to respect everyone's time, for those of us in person, since it's cold outside, I'll recommend that we go ahead and get started. So I am Marielle. I am chair of the Housing and Human Services Committee. We meet every Thursday, or the first Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. So thank you all for being here. I'll go ahead and ask our committee members to introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of delve into the 2 presentations that we're having this evening. Indiana, if you would like to introduce yourself. Wonderful, thank you.
Hi, I'm Indiana, and I am relatively new to CB12, and I'm excited to be here at 7 p.m.
Thanks, Indiana.
Thank you.
Jay, over to you. I know Jay is Travis. I'm not sure if Jay can speak at the moment, but just in case.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Jay Baez. I'm community board member for Community Board 12 since last year of May, and I was born and raised here in Washington Heights my whole life, and then I guess there's no one else online, right? Oh no, yeah, Tanisha's on. I'll pass it on to Tanisha.
That we now have.
Hey everybody, Tanisha, community board member since this year, I guess. And I've always been in this community. I was in this community. I'm gonna always say it before it was called Washington Heights. So yeah, here for it. Hey y'all.
Hi, Tanisha. Good to have you. Great. So I think that's it. Again, we don't have quorum, but we can still receive the presentations. And like I said, just kind of checking with our chair here, that we cannot vote on anything. If anything, again, just for your notes, Anisha, since you joined just now, if there's a need to vote for anything, it would have to be done in January when hopefully we do have quorum to do that, but I don't anticipate that happening. So with that on the unadopted agenda, we have a presentation from our colleagues at HPD. This is the Manhattan Planning Division on an upcoming request for a proposal. The site is 4095 9th Avenue. They are online. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to William at HPD. If I suggest if you all could maybe quickly introduce yourselves, and then we'll turn the floor over to you to present.
All right. How's everyone doing this evening? My name is William Sedgwick, and I am the senior planner for the Manhattan Planning Team. And I will pass it off to Melissa.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. Great to see y'all. My name is Melissa Ott, and I am the Director of Manhattan Planning here at HPD, and I'll let Amy introduce herself.
Thank you. Name is Amy Pivak. I'm the Director of Pre-Development Planning. The team runs the RFP process, and just want to thank everyone for welcoming us virtually on this cold night. There were some transportation issues, so really appreciate you accommodating us, but don't worry, we will be up there to meet you in person soon, I hope. And then pass it last but not least to Ulysses.
Thank you, Amy. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ulysses, and I am a pre-development planner. And I will pass it back to Marielle.
Great, thank you, Ulysses. I'll actually pass it back to your colleague, William, who will share his screen, and I'll turn it over to all of you for the presentation. Thank you.
Sorry. So is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to put it in presenter mode now. All right. Good evening, members of CB12 and the public. My name is William Sedgwick, and I am the senior planner for the Manhattan Planning Team at HPD. Tonight, I am joined with my colleagues from HPD, Melissa Otten, Director of Manhattan Planning, Amy Pivak, Director of Pre-Development Planning, and Ulysses Linares, planner for the Pre-Development Planning Team, who will introduce themselves throughout the presentation or during the Q&A. The agenda for this evening, as you can see, will begin with a brief description of the site overview, the processes for both the RFP, request for proposals, and community visioning reports. And lastly, we'll discuss next steps, and we will then open the floor for further discussions and any questions or concerns you all may have.
William, it doesn't appear that the slides are progressing. Still
They're
on
not
the
moving?
no.
No.
Apologies. Not
Oh,
sure
good.
what's going on right now.
I stapled it backwards. That's what I was looking. I was like, wait, hold on.
Oh, that was the machine.
It was the machine. I figured. Yeah, I was like, I was like, wait, hold on.
Well, we're gonna put it on the website.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
exactly. Perfect.
Are
Now
you
we-
able? Can you see this as well, though?
It
Yeah,
says
it says-
agenda.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay, so you don't see like the mute stop video.
No.
No.
Okay, awesome. Sorry about that.
Oh,
So the agenda for this evening, as you can see, will begin with a description of the site overview, the processes for the RFP and community visioning reports, and then lastly, we'll discuss next steps and open up the floor for further discussion and any questions or concerns you all may have. Be able to see this slide? Just
Yeah.
want to
yes.
confirm. All right, awesome. So to begin, we will discuss the overview of the site description and background. The site that is designated to be RFP is located at 4095 9th Avenue along the Harlem River waterfront in the Inwood neighborhood of Manhattan. The lot size is approximately 94,000 square feet and is within a C62 zoning district, which has an R8 equivalent zoning district. Additionally, this site is located within the special Inwood district and also mapped in a designated mandatory inclusionary housing or MIH area. This site was previously used for charter communications for a parking lot. The site is serviced by multiple modes of transportation, including roughly about a quarter of a mile from the one subway line's 215th Street station and multiple bus routes with direct service to Harlem, East Midtown, and Riverdale. So as you can see, this is where the site is. And then there's 215th Street station. The project originates from commitments made for the development of affordable housing during the Inwood rezoning. And as part of this Inwood rezoning negotiations, the City of New York entered into a points of agreement or a POA, committing to approximately 570 affordable housing units, in addition to an on-site STEM hub and public waterfront access. To deliver these requirements of this points of agreement, the city sought approvals and received prior approvals for acquisition of the site and disposition approval. Potential future approvals that could be necessary to fulfill the points of agreement would include an Article 11 disposition and a waterfront access plan certification. As mentioned, there will be a public waterfront access provided on site. This slide shows the future waterfront access plan public access area. I know that's a big word. The solid black line, are you able to see my mouse?
Yes.
So this solid black line represents the lot in question, or sorry, the subject lot, which is shown as parcel 2 and 3. And this parcel will be RFP'd, and the new waterfront access is provided with this heavy dotted line right here. Now I'll be handing the presentation over to Ulysses Linares from HPD's pre-development planning team.
Great, thank you, William. In the following slides, I'll be going over the RFP process and our community engagement. And I'll also be going into greater detail on what our engagement looks like. So this here shows what our pre-development process looks like. We are in the early stages of the project, so we are on the first step, community visioning. That is where we conduct community engagement in the neighborhood and collect community members' input on the site, as well as other priorities in the neighborhood. At the end of our community visioning process, we summarize all of the community input into a community vision report, and we publish that online on our project website, and it accompanies the RFP in the form of an appendix. The next step is the open request and submission review. So once our RFP is released to the public, we begin to carefully look at all proposals coming in and evaluate to see how closely they follow our goals, criteria, and the community vision report. From there, we designate a developer team and we work closely with that team throughout the public approvals process. We then prep the project for financial closing to begin construction. Once the project is completed, it then goes on the New York City housing lottery for New Yorkers to apply. But before we actually begin engagement, we like to do some preliminary engagement with key stakeholders. That is, we brief the community board, council member, borough president, and other key stakeholders in the neighborhood to get a feel for the neighborhood, if there are priorities that stakeholders would like us to pay close attention to, or populations that we should be engaging more with, and also for them to collaborate with us and tell us how they would like to be involved throughout the process. Next slide, please. Okay, so in this slide, I'll be talking about how we actually conduct our engagement. One of our methods is public tabling events. Oh, sorry, go back. Thank you. Public tabling events. That is where we go out to the neighborhood and we distribute information packets and our questionnaires. This is also a good opportunity for community members to ask questions and engage with us and learn more about the project. But we also carry a big online presence through the form of a project website. We also launch social media campaigns, send out email blasts, and we also publish our questionnaire online to be more easily distributed. Another key component of our engagement is hosting a workshop event. So potential topics that could be covered in our upcoming workshop for this project are neighborhood assets and needs mapping, site design activity to discuss the open space amenities along the waterfront and what community members would like to see, and also educating community members on affordability levels. At the end of our engagement process, we like to do a report back. That is where we go back to key stakeholders that would like us to present to them priorities that have been identified throughout the engagement process, as well as summarize our findings. And it is open to the public. And again, all of our findings will be published online on our project website in the form of a community vision report. And I think I want to take the opportunity here to ask the community board if y'all be interested in hosting a report back meeting with us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. On the next two slides, I'll be going over our near steps and milestones, and then I'll open up the floor to discussion. So this slide just shows our near steps and milestones to be covered in the following months. So we are at the end of the year. that is where we're at right now with preliminary outreach, meeting with the community board, council member, and other key stakeholders. In the winter months, we intend to launch our pre-workshop engagement and host our workshop. Then we hope to draft our community vision report and RFP sometime in spring and release the RFP mid to late spring. Okay, now I want to open up the floor for discussion, and I think I'd like to start off by asking the community board if there are other key stakeholders that you feel we should be briefing and talking with throughout our engagement process.
I'm happy to throw something out there. I'm a wheelchair user, and so to the extent that you can engage, communities that work with disabled New Yorkers and directly with disabled New Yorkers, I'd appreciate that, so that it's not like after the fact, after everything's planned and set. The most, I think, involvement that we can have from early on, the better.
Thanks, Indiana. I'm just looking at the thing. If I can add on to Indiana's point, I think what's really important, particularly the bit around thinking this through from the beginning and not having kind of things around social inclusion be an afterthought. So really thinking quite clearly from now as we're doing. So we appreciate this presentation, the ability to input into some of that. To ensure that all communities within CB12 have an opportunity to input into this process and can share their views and thoughts. So thanks for raising that, Indiana. But I'll open it up and see if, I guess first I'll check with colleagues here in person. Do you have any thoughts, any kind of initial questions for HPD? And then I'll turn it over to colleagues online.
At
Please.
this moment, no.
This moment, no. Our members of the public are also welcome to share a point if you have one.
I'll go after everybody.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One is, are you thinking about creating any home ownership opportunities with the big development, 507 units, and then we've got those two other big developments. So we're gonna have like 5,000 people over in that corner of Inwood, and it would be great if we could have some home ownership opportunities that are affordable home ownership opportunities like Mitchell Lama or HDFC. You could do part of the building that way. And then the second one is, is this going to be a city-owned project or is it private? I didn't see anything about ownership.
Yeah, I can go ahead and answer both of those questions for you. So during our tabling events and our workshop, this will be an opportunity for members of CB12 to come out and speak on what they would like to see in this development. So home ownership is definitely something that will be in discussion when our website and questionnaire is up and ready. Members of CB12 will be able to utilize not only our workshops and tabling events, but also our questionnaire online on the website. As for your second question, this is a city-owned site. HPD is in control of this site. And during the RFP process, we would RFP this out to a private developer to be built through one of our many term sheets, such as seniors, or known as SARA, extremely low income, ELA, mix and match, home ownership. So there's a lot of opportunities to explore different term sheets during our future engagements.
One more question.
Sure, and then,
I like the idea of access to the waterfront, and I'm hoping that that idea includes a little bit of green space, not just concrete and steps down to the water. Get a public.
Yeah, so I'd like to speak a little bit on that. So again, as my colleague William mentioned, so that's actually part of our questionnaire. We will be seeking community input on open space amenities along the waterfront for community members to weigh in on what amenities they would like to see.
great questions. There are two hands from Indiana and Jay, but, oh, you sure? Okay, so I'm gonna go online. Just wanting to check this, do you have a question? Paul?
Yeah,
So go to Paul
follow up
first.
on Cheryl's
and then
question
online.
there. So that you mentioned Ella mix and match and the seniors term sheets. It's an MIH zone, but it sounds like you're talking about higher percentages. It's gonna be 100% affordable, or we're gonna keep within the MIH limits.
Yeah, so
This is 100%. Go ahead, Amy, sorry.
I was just going to jump in and say, yes, this will be 100% affordable. We will also have the MIH mapped over top of it, so that will be part of it, but it will be all affordable.
And will there be an attempt to have the affordability levels at least match the income distribution of Inwood, or even better, because other developments do better for the higher end of the income distribution, focus on the lower end of the income distribution. Because MIH doesn't do that. MIH is, as implemented here, is higher than our median income.
Sorry, William, do you want to answer
Yeah.
that one?
Sorry, yeah. So as we were previously discussing, throughout our engagement, which is going to be, you know, multiple opportunities for members from CB12 to have their input for how they would like to see the AMI tiers, what type of term sheets are used, and all that feedback that is given to us will help us draft that language in the RFP to be released to the public. If that answers your question.
Yeah.
So
that kind of decision comes later, is what you're saying.
exactly. So we're still in a very early stage right now. So we're engaging CB12 and opening this discussion and allowing your input to influence what this RFP will ultimately be.
One last question or point to make here that you might want to respond to, which is, well, I kind of agree with Cheryl. It's nice to have the access to the waterfront. There's a lot of people in Inwood who are, because we're surrounded by water, concerned about properties like this one that are right up against the waterfront, and concerned that maybe they shouldn't be developed, but be plenty of, cushioning. Be like Inwood Hill Park. It gives us plenty of environmental cushioning to sea level rise and floods and that kind of thing, which is all expected to get worse. So that, I don't know if that means you couldn't do the project there, but maybe you could do it a little differently.
No, yeah, absolutely. And we do work closely with HPD's resiliency team, and environmental and other teams that ensure that any of the buildings that were to be constructed on this site would meet proper flood zone requirements up to 2080 right now. We have very strict design guidelines that we work with the developer throughout the process. And everything must be signed off by HPD.
Up to 2080, you said.
As of now, yes. So that's the flood zone map we're looking at. Additionally, we're not going to be putting units in that, like on the first floor, like residential units. And like I said, we work closely with our environmental and resiliency teams to ensure that all of our projects meet very, very strict standards to ensure that, none of the electrical will be in the basement. There will be specifics when the developer is selected, that when we do our design consultation with the development team, it is a very strict process. I can assure you that. It's very intensive. And we hold the development team to very high standards.
I have one more time.
Great, thank you. Can I give Richard a chance first and then back to you? And then we do have hands online, so I do want to give them an opportunity. No?
Sure,
Go ahead, Richard.
I'll be brief with appreciation for the comments made before. My concern is actually a secondary concern here, not on the core housing issues. But all of these waterfront sites are located a block away from Broadway, behind buildings that, or lots that are just daytime use. That's a dark access to the buildings, and I just want to see that kind of infrastructure attention is, whether it's housing, whether it's parkland, whatever, that there are going to be some infrastructure needs for lighting, for other public safety planning.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this will all be discussed throughout the design guideline process. Additionally, during the Inwood rezoning, 2 sites were selected to be built for affordable housing. So that's why we are pursuing with this RFP and have sought prior approvals in the past.
Yeah, I also want to add that, thank you for that insight. And during our workshop, again, as I mentioned, a potential topic that will be discussed at the workshop is site design. So community members will definitely have an opportunity to tell us how the layout should look like.
Thank you. Just really quickly over to you, Cheryl, and then I'll go to our members online.
Okay. I just wanted to throw in 2 cents, which is I hope, since this is a city-owned site, that you will seriously consider partnering with a not-for-profit and develop homeownership opportunities. You could create a Mitchell-Lama or HDFC co-op. All right, I'm done.
Thank you. And that's why they said, let's make sure that we kind of coordinate and, engage in that community workshop to be able to provide this input, and that we're spreading the word to ensure that it's not just from us, the community board, but our networks all throughout the community that are here making their voices heard in terms of what we would like to see at the site. I'm not sure who was first online, but if it's okay, I'll go over to Jay first and then followed by Tanisha.
Hi, folks. I just had a couple questions. So I have if you could just answer the question as stated, are you bound by the MIH options that are currently legally available to you guys? Or if the community board wants, when we talk about 100% affordable, not just the options you have available, but saying all units have to be affordable, and certain percentages should be based on the zip code average income instead of the median one. and things like that? Is that all flexible, or is it just whatever you're able to work with?
Melissa, would you like to take that one?
So the AMI tiers themselves are going to be, like the rents that are under and correlate to a certain AMI tier, say 50% AMI. That's going to be based on, those AMIs averages that we have to use that are, given down from HUD to us. Now, that doesn't mean that we're restricted in terms of the affordability levels that we can provide. We do have our different term sheets that allow for different levels of affordability. And, as we collect feedback from the community can certainly let us know what affordability levels they think would be most appropriate for this site. Now, when we have the vernacular, it's going to have to be put into the terms of those AMIs that you're referencing, just so that we have some sort of standard to go off of. But certainly if you think that what is 40% AMI is appropriate, I'm just throwing out an example, is appropriate for this site, then you can tell us that during this process, and we can follow up with information about term sheets so that you have something to look at to understand like our programs and our financing, and so that we're all speaking the same language. Does that answer your question?
A little bit. I don't want to get into the granular details.
Yeah,
but,
no, I know what you're saying. We're like the AMI, it's frustrating because the AMIs that we have to speak with, right? They're based off of what HUD tells us the average AMI for New York City is. But what I'm saying is if you see an AMI tier within that seems appropriate for the site, then you should tell us what those tiers are. And we can provide you information about the income ranges that are within those tiers, and also kind of our standard term sheet, so you can see the options that are available. But again, it can be an open process, but it's helpful to use those AMIs, those AMI tiers.
Okay. No, yeah, I understand that. So then another question is on the survey you guys do. Is that transparent in the sense of, do you release the data results on that, or is that just something that it's internal to you guys and we're just supposed to see what you choose?
So are you referring to like the questionnaire that we collect?
Yeah, the questionnaire, like because that's where you're going to collect from mainly, I would assume.
Yeah, no, all of that will be available to the public. Again, at the end of our engagement process, we will summarize our findings and publish our findings in a community vision report.
And do you guys provide any data prior to, like, for people to be informed? Like, say, this is the population of CB12. This is how many percentage of people live below this income, above this income. Do you provide any of that to at least have the public be a little bit informed of what they would think makes sense?
Well, we currently we can definitely follow up with the community board and share these figures if that's something of interest.
Thanks, Ulysses. I mean, and just to add on to what Ulysses just shared, I mean, we also have our statement of district needs, which I think does a good job of outlining, what the CB is about, CB12 is about, and that could kind of be used as a framework or an outline, as these are a little bit of background, that could be, at the outset of these workshops, for instance. Maybe it's, ensuring that those who are participating, that the information is available publicly online. When people sign up, that it's maybe emailed to them, so that way they have time to review it. So that way when they come to the workshops, they have that knowledge to be able to engage. I think there's also a bit around, just really quickly, terminology, and really ensuring, that you're speaking to people not everyone is an expert in housing or works on this every day. And so if we really want to reach everyone, then we also need to kind of speak same language. So there's that. And obviously a bit on the kind of more logistical side, obviously the translation is a very big Spanish speaking community here. So ensuring that that's included in these outreach processes. Can I just check, Jay, if there's anything else from you?
And can I also just respond a little bit more?
Sure,
Sorry,
please.
add a little bit.
Sure.
So as part of our engagement process, when we go out and we do these tabling events in the community to try to meet people and have them fill out the questionnaire, we come prepared with these big boards where we do break out the, what the community, the incomes of the community compared to the borough, compared to the city. So we have these like big boards and we talk about, incomes and AMIs and all of that can really explain what we're asking about. And when we put on our workshop, we'll also have a presentation that we'll kick off with that will include that information. So I absolutely agree. We really need to, kind of ground these conversations and what we're really dealing with. So yeah, that's a very important thing that we're definitely planning to do. So yeah, very much appreciate that comment. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Amy. Jay, anything else from you?
Yeah, just
Sure.
not to prolong everything. I'll ask one last one. When you do the RFP process, and is that legally binding, right? Like all the options that were laid out in that term sheet, they have to meet. There's no like later on, I'm like, I'm not gonna create 10% of that. I want a higher floor than what was proposed, or things like that. I've had experiences where you guys have this special agency called Board of Standards that just waives a lot of regulations for folks, even though we disagree.
Yeah, the Board of Standards and Appeals, where they can override the zoning. So the project inevitably will evolve over time. Our goal is to choose something and then have it look as close as possible to what was chosen. We have a lot of hooks there. We designate a team. We have them when we give the land. We have lots of restrictions in the deed. We have a whole land disposition agreement where we write in what we're expecting of them, and they are held to that. But of course, there are always little minor tweaks and things that happen over time, but we do aim to make this as similar to what was chosen by the time it gets built. And it will comply with zoning, building regulations, all of the standard things that we need to comply with.
So you are giving away the property at the end.
Right.
Right. I just real quick.
Sure.
Are you able to legally enforce whatever terms you put when you give over that deed? Where the land, because the private developers like to, say, we'll do this and then change their minds.
Absolutely. Our land disposition agreements and regulatory agreements are very well written. We have a great legal team here, and teams are held to these standards, and what is in there they have to do. And if they don't, then we're able to take the land back from them.
Okay. I'm sorry, because you created a whole follow for me. The last bit to that then, because you keep saying we'll try our best to meet these standards. How far can a developer go versus what you put in an RFP when you're talking about tweaks? Like, can they reduce the amount of affordable units would be considered? Can they change the AMIs however they see fit?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that they can change things however they see fit at all. Like, we have certain standards. By far, this will be 100% affordable. That's not changing. They will have to follow building and code and zoning. That's not changing. Sometimes at the end of a process, the AMIs make it tweaked a little bit. Like, say, you might have a little bit of shift from like within a 10% range or something like that, but that's negotiated very carefully at the end of the process. And Melissa and the Manhattan Planning Division has been through more of that later on in the process once we hand the project over to them. But it's definitely, we have the final say on what's being done there. So we have very strong control over what ends up getting built.
Right. And I'll add that, especially in this case, when it's publicly owned land, that land really is the hook. So, you know, as we're moving towards the public approvals process, my team will be working with the development team to make sure that we have a project that is the best use of public resources that we think and is responsive, we hope, to what the community needs. And sometimes there may be like little tweaks in the AMIs up or down. Hopefully not too different though. And again, we're not going to move forward with a project that we don't feel meets the needs of the community, or we're not going to let a developer just do a non 100% affordable project on like a publicly owned site.
Okay, I think you do this already, but this is not a question, it's more if you could just keep the community board informed when I guess you're in those discussions about the AMI affordabilities being negotiated, or, you know, because if we're saying yes to something and then it changes the whole concept based on AMIs and we're not aware, I think it just looks bad for the community board to approve something.
Yeah, absolutely. I could take that for you. So throughout the ULURP process, and pre-ULURP, during this process, we will offer to come to the community board and present as much as requested to different committees, the executive committee, full board. It's up to CB12 to, we'll coordinate, of course, and see how much engagement they would like us to continue to present throughout this process. But the most important thing that I want to really stress is this initial phase of engagement is most important for this process to ensure that we are reaching what the community not only needs, but is asking for.
If you ask us to come out, we'll keep you updated. If you email us, we're happy to provide the updates. Also, other stakeholders, such as the council member, borough president, will reach out to them. I'm sure they'll talk to you guys.
Great. Thank you, William and Melissa. Thank you, Jay. Yeah, some really good questions. Over then to Tanisha, followed by Marshall, and then we'll go back in the room, I think. Tanisha,
And hold on, I just want to clarify something. This project is currently not going through ULURP. My apologies. I just want to clarify that. Okay,
thank you. Tanisha, over to you.
Hey, hello. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and making this presentation. Housing is something that I'm very passionate about. It's something that I advocate for. So I just want to be clear. The AMI that the state puts down is not the AMI of the neighborhood. It never matches. Affordable housing, they have been getting us for years, saying that the people are going to build affordable housing, and then it gets built, and they're talking about affordable housing for people who make $100,000. That is not the AMI of our community. We are a low-income, working-class community. We have a lot of people that live on checks, Social Security, social disability, SSSD. So forgive me if I am not trustful, because I have seen the things that HPD have done before. So to piggyback on what Jay is saying, a lot of people come and tell us that they're going to build affordable housing, but it is not affordable to the people who live in the community. I live on a block where we have all different types of housing, but the condos across the street, we could never afford to live in. So it's very, very important that I say this strongly, that I will not be approving anything that is going to displace people who have lived here for a long time. So I just want y'all to keep that in mind, that the AMI that the state brings down for what our communities make is not the AMI of the actual community. So that is something that I will be watching very closely.
Absolutely. We really
Thank you.
appreciate that feedback. And going through this process, we will continue to engage with CB12 members and members of the community to ensure that the AMI tiers that are negotiated when we release the RFP meets the needs of the community board. And unfortunately, we can't control the AMI levels that are set by HUD. However, in some of those AMI tiers, such as 30%, 40%, 50%, you do see more of affordability. And additionally, through the process with the development team that is selected, rent levels are set, and there's always room for, negotiations. And I know that HPD programs who are in charge of our term sheets are really focusing on moving towards more affordability and less of, what you see of the 130% AMI tiers.
Thank you, William. I think if there's one thing that I think has been a thread so far in our comments is obviously how close we need to continue to work. So this is the beginning of many conversations and engagements with you and your team for this site. I'll turn it over to Marshall and then Indiana.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Look, good evening, everybody. I'm Marshall Vanderpool. I'm a public member. Apologize if I was a little late. I guess one indulgence I'll ask, since I was late, I'm really not sure of the location of the project, and maybe you can cover that in a recap. But I guess what's on my mind is there are numerous developments that are going up in the neighborhood. I'm thinking about on 10th Avenue, across the street from the Dykeman Houses, where I was the first vice president of the Resident Association. And I'm thinking about like 207th Street near the bridge, and we got the residences coming up over with the new library we're supposed to be receiving, and maybe Sherman Avenue and Broadway, where high rises are going up there. And I guess my concern stems from, I guess, 2 points. In that, is the infrastructure of Inwood, of our neighborhood, going to be able to support all these new residences, and especially the residence that's proposed here? One. And one thing I'm thinking about is a comment by Mr. Sedgwick, as far as, well, we're not building residences on the ground floor. I mean, we are in a flood zone. And the point still comes to mind that if you have major building utilities on that first floor or in the basement or something like that, then what happens when those areas get flooded and impacts the residents of that building, even though they're not living on the first floor and immediately impacted? So I'll leave you with all this. I'm going to leave my plane here, and you can answer.
No, I can go ahead and answer those questions for you if you would like me to.
Okay. Well, no, I'm gonna tune out. I'm gonna accept all the answers. I mean,
Well, no,
I'm not Jay. I'm not going to take up much of your
Thanks.
time.
No,
Okay?
no,
Thank
we
you.
appreciate the question. All right.
Jay asked good questions.
I did just want to clarify. So when we work with our resiliency and environmental teams, and go through the design consultation with the development team that's selected by the RFP, it ensures that any mechanical or electrical won't be in an area that is prone to flooding. So more likely on a roof of a setback of a building, and things like that. As for the location of this is at 4095 9th Avenue. So like 220th Street, 218th Street, between them.
Oh, okay, but I did have one more question, and I know you're saying this is city property, but I'm thinking about two lots already. I'm thinking about maybe Nagel and Arden Street and I guess west side of Broadway between I guess Academy and 204th Street. And is your department involved with encouraging development of private properties, which it seems that these would be much more within the grid of properties that could be developed for housing? And I really think I am done here. Thank you.
So
I'm not
HPD
personally,
can,
sorry, I'll jump in here.
okay,
I'm
thank you.
personally not familiar with the sites that you're speaking about. I mean, if you have questions, you can definitely follow up with us with those specific sites, and we can see if they're somehow in HPD's portfolio or pipeline for financing. But again, I'm not familiar with them. So yeah, please send those sites our way and we can respond.
Yep, we can do that. Great. Thank you, Marshall. And really appreciate all the questions that you've asked, but also others on the line. Indiana, and then we're gonna go back in person. Over to you.
Thank you. I have two questions. One of them is just a quick clarification. You said that the community feedback would be provided. Is it going to be like a summary of the community feedback whenever you do the report, or is it going to be like the actual statements, or even if it's a summary, but is it going to be like every statement that you received, or is it going to be a synthesis of what you got?
Yeah, I can answer that. We can we can follow up with the community board and share an example. But yeah, it's a bit of everything. So it does showcase the results of all the questions that were featured in the questionnaire and the results of those questions with added commentary and quotes that we heard from community members at our workshops. So yeah, it's a summary of everything that we heard throughout the community engagement.
And is it possible though to receive the actual, like the actual questionnaires that you receive?
Sorry, do you mean like?
Yeah, so we generally wouldn't publish those. They're sort of, people submit them and, we don't publish those publicly. But we do take all the data and we analyze it, and then we publish the results of what the survey answers were. And then, as Ulysses said, we pull some quotes that are really fitting. But yeah, we wouldn't share the actual surveys that people send us.
Okay. And then, thank you. The other question was, since it's not going through ULURP, so I'm new to the housing committee, who ultimately makes the decision? And I mean, I feel silly asking that, right? Like, sure, it's deep down, right? The mayor. But who kind of has the final decision-making authority? Is it somebody at HPD? Is it, can you what is it, like an approval process? Does it go through council? Does it?
Yeah. It's not silly at all. It's complicated. And every site can be a little different. This one is unique for us because this whole area already went through that ULURP process. During the whole inward rezoning, this received some approvals through that. It was rezoned through that. So that's why we're not sort of redoing that full ULURP. That said, we will need to get some additional approvals, and the local council member will be signing off on the project. So we've met with her, spoken with her, and she will ultimately have the vote on this. Also, this is a little in the weeds, but for our public waterfront access area, the city planning commissioner has to sign off. They have to certify the plan to make sure it complies with zoning and that everything that's, needs to happen is going to happen. So there are additional levels of approval that will be happening down the line. And yes, your council member has a vote on it.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I know Kathy has wanting to speak, so over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is, oh, there we go. My name is Kathy or Catherine. I'm the chair for Community Board 12. Excited that y'all are here and starting at the very, very beginning. We've often worked like this with parks and have seen really positive outcomes from that. So I feel like this is probably the first time we do this in the housing space. I have two kind of questions around the RFP itself, and then y'all gave us homework. So I want to respect that too, right? So one is part of the engagement sessions, is it always, or is it just focused on the project, but also, or is there room to give feedback around the developers and the criteria for, or the criteria that will be part of the RFP in terms of the developers? So in terms of being, creating that space, right? I know you mentioned around, like, for example, nonprofit developers, or, you know, MWBE goals, and just different kind of contracting priorities that the community might have. And I'm curious if the engagement sessions have included some of that and not just the projects themselves. And then the second part around the RFP is, in the presentation, you have the 3 agreements, right? The waterfront, a STEM center, and the property itself. Is the RFP for all of it, or is it just for the development? Like, would the STEM center be a separate RFP? And the management of that STEM center, like how would that work there?
Sure. So I can answer those. To start with the second question. So this is all going to be part of one RFP, and it will all be on the same site. So what we're envisioning is this sort of STEM use on the ground floor of the building with residential apartments above. And then that waterfront access around the site behind, maybe some more open space around the site. So it will be one big proposal. Oftentimes when folks, you know, respond to our RFPs, they put together teams. It's not just, you know, a developer. They have, you know, full teams who work on this. And I assume for this one, they'll have some sort of, you know, economic development experts who will help with that, that piece as well. I know during the Inwood rezoning, there were some discussions around potential partners who could help out with the STEM use. So we might try to engage with them again just to see what their interests are. But yeah, we're expecting some like pretty big, robust teams to come with these proposals for all these different parts that they're going to have to figure out. And then as for the question about the developers and the composition of the development teams themselves, that's a great question, and happy to say that I think it was maybe 2019, but within the past 5-ish years, I want to say, HPD actually instituted a new requirement requiring at least 25% ownership by a nonprofit or MWBE on all of our RFP sites. So at least 25% is going to be a nonprofit or an MWBE. And then as part of the scoring process, we actually do look at this, and we can give more points for teams that feature higher amounts of nonprofit and MWBE partnership. So we do look at that as part of the way we score things, and we do encourage that.
Got it. But that would, yes, okay. So their experience and qualifications in that space. Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, we're always open to hearing thoughts around that too as we engage.
And I guess a big question I have is, what's the timeline? So when are you hoping, we're in the start of winter, so like when are you hoping to start these engagement sessions? For how long? Yeah. And then I can give
I can answer that. Yeah, so we're hoping to start our engagement hopefully within the next week or two. In fact, that's another discussion question that I wanted to bring up to the community board. If the community board is aware of any upcoming events, I know that we're nearing the holidays, but if anything is happening in Inwood, that we should definitely be there to hold a tabling event, so we can distribute our information packets and questionnaire. We also plan to launch our website sometime next week, so very soon. So that as for how long, well, we're hoping to host a workshop sometime next year in the winter months. It has happened in the past where we set a deadline to close our engagement phase, but through request that ends up getting extended. So yeah, we do definitely do our utmost to collect as much community input and promote our workshop for community members to show up and participate in activities and hopefully learn something.
And then the last thing, I know, I'm sorry, is I think in terms of some of the questions, so obviously, I mean, English, Spanish, and not just like, sometimes folks do like 1 or 2 Spanish and like 10 in English, right? But being able, as you're looking at the map of where you're moving through the neighborhood and the audience that you're reaching out to, I know that when the waterfront on Academy Street was being redesigned, I think one thing I really took away from it was that the architects were in the room. Oftentimes, sometimes in these sessions, you will have, and not it's no disrespect to anyone on the call or like anyone who does external affairs or intergov work, it's great, but to have folks who are deep in a project, whether they're on the policy side or or they're the architects themselves, or are able to speak to these projects fully, I think is really key. So making sure that a lot of the staff are there, or even if they can't make it to all, just being able to highlight so that people can pick and choose which ones they want to go to, knowing that, folks with this background will be here and they might focus on this piece. And then, I mean, I know in the past we've done it, but we're happy to give a list. The committee always decides, but we're more than happy to give a list of organizations and schools and contacts to go to. The PTAs are building a lot up here. And then, so I think part of that too would be like the renderings of, I know often at land use, it's been discussed that when there's new developments, and I think across the board, right? Like a lot of new developments, the footage is getting smaller and smaller. And I think those visual tools of these are similar RFPs, and this is what an apartment could look like. This is what the facility could look like. So I think not just having the renderings of the site, but like what's the realm of possibility so that people can give more feedback, right? Because that's also helpful, but I'll shut up there.
No, thank you, Kathy. All really good points. Just wanted to come back quickly and maybe, I know Ulysses, you mentioned on the point around how soon you want to have, or you're looking to have the preliminary engagement sessions. Obviously the workshop, as you mentioned, will probably be like January, February, I would imagine. Haven't really kind of discussed with the committee, but slightly concerned if we're going to try and push something through in the next 2 weeks. If I heard correctly, that's quite quick. And I don't think that gives us sufficient time to plan accordingly and to really kind of do that outreach that we need to do. But we can kind of, I would prefer that that's something that we can do like at the beginning of January, once people are back from the holidays and, so on and so forth. But it also gives us time to carefully think through and be able to support in this process. But I just wanted to clarify that I understood you correctly, Ulysses.
Yeah, I understand that it may sound a bit too ambitious, but we're just eager to start engagement. But yeah, definitely if the community board feels that at the start of January you'll have something to share with us regarding local events or anything like that we could definitely table at, yeah, we would like to hear anything that is on your radar, and we'll definitely show up.
Yeah, I think that's a bit more feasible. And I do know that William, you were mentioning you use the community board's website to find kind of the community stakeholders and things. So obviously it's a first great resource for kind of community organizations and networks and things in CB12, but also it's something that we can ask amongst the entire community board, not just this committee, in terms of other networks and community-based organizations, so on and so forth, that should be involved in this process. And so we can come back to you with some of that offline. Richard.
And sorry, can I just clarify just a little bit too?
Sure.
What we mean by like within the next couple of weeks is starting our public engagement, like putting up a website, starting our online presence, and beginning
That's fine.
Okay, making sure that's okay. Yeah. And then the process will happen for a few months. We'll have a couple of months lead time before the workshop to make sure that there's time to advertise and all of that. But it would just be kicking off that we would be doing soon. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for clarifying, Amy. I was under that impression, but in terms of like us being able to pull together lists for tabling, it might be a little bit hard, honestly. But we can certainly look to opportunities January moving forward. There were like 2 points.
Richard, you could ask the simplest question.
What?
I had a simple question. Do you have like a number of questionnaires in mind that you would love to have? Like, yeah, like, target there.
In terms of responses?
Yeah, like 1,000 surveys is like, who did it, or I don't know.
That's a good question.
Ulysses, do you want to answer? Do you want me to?
I just want to say that it honestly varies greatly from site to site. We don't have a minimum, but we definitely spend a lot of time engaging with the community throughout the engagement phase with again, tabling events, email blast, social media campaign, workshop. We heavily advertise that. We really try to get our key stakeholders to promote our questionnaire for us, and we have like timed emails that we send out, like every week or so, reminding people to fill out the questionnaire, share it with friends and family, and things like that. So we really do have a very robust engagement phase, and we really put a lot of effort in putting the word out. And we ask our stakeholders that are collaborating with us to also help us spread the word, to make sure that we reach the most community members that we can possibly reach.
Thank you, Ulysses. If I can, just noting the time, because we still have one other presentation, I want to be mindful. Richard, and then I see Jay, and if it's okay, we'll close it there. I'll kind of come back with some closing points, and then we'll move on. Richard. We'll
I've
see.
been pretty quiet. You
Go
got
ahead. I'm giving you a break. Go ahead. Over to you, Richard.
a different sort of question. It looks to me like there's at least some rough parallels between what's proposed on the Inwood waterfront and what's been happening over the last 1 to 2 decades on the post-industrial waterfront in the Bronx on the other side of the Harlem River. I haven't seen any numbers on what's actually happened there. I don't know if there are any studies or lessons learned to be taken from how the waterfront's been done in the Bronx, but my eyeball judgment says it's more market rate than perhaps was discussed along the way. I don't have the facts, but I think as we go into this, it really would be good to have a study and some numbers on affordability and other intentions on the West Bronx, on the Bronx, we'll call it post-industrial Bronx waterfront on the Harlem River. It's a pretty open-ended question. I mean, I realize it isn't going to get this magic response in the next 60 seconds. 90 seconds, maybe.
Okay, not seeing any mics unmuting, so I'm assuming.
Well, in the absence of that, then I would say to the chair, this is a request to be as part of the process.
Well, it
One
is
second.
follow-up.
Hold on, just 1 second, please. Okay, just really quickly, and Jay has the last word because we do need to move on with our agenda.
Okay.
Please.
Just to follow up on what Richard was saying, you don't have to work all that hard. You can just produce a racial equity report, even though this isn't going through Newler. That would answer all the questions that everyone has about affordability and, how it meets our needs. So if you could just commit to producing a racial equity report for this project, then there would be no issue.
HPD?
Yeah, that's something that we can discuss internally and get back to the community board.
we'll follow up on that. Thank you.
Of
Jay?
course.
Yeah, I just had a point of clarification. I didn't realize that this was not going to go through ULURP after, people still want to. So it's not, if a developer applies, meets your criteria, that doesn't go through ULURP.
This building has a right for after the.
Right, so the Inwood rezoning was approved through ULURP already, and this site was included as part of that rezoning. So now we're taking the site and we're taking it through this RFP process to choose a development team based on the criteria that, we need as the city to be able to create a development, as well as what we're hearing from the community. At that point, we could dispose of the land, but we are also going to go through a secondary process where we will need further approval from the council member. So it's a little different from a usual process. So not a full ULURP, but we are coming here early. We are very open to discussing and we want this feedback, but right, you won't be sitting through like that full ULURP process for this site.
And I apologize.
So even
I think I was the one who used the word pre-ULURP and ULURP, but I was more talking about the pre-development process and that process prior to going to council.
Okay, you gotta
okay,
follow
so
up
then
real quickly.
yeah, it was, since it's not going through ULURP, the only thing it needs approval from is the city council member. Even for the disposition of the property, you guys don't gotta ask us.
Yeah, that's right, because it was already approved actually. So it went through ULURP already. And so I know it's sometimes a little abnormal because a lot of times our sites will do this and then it will go through ULURP. This is a little reversed.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
It's just like I guess you guys did that for the Jerome rezoning too in the Bronx.
And anywhere we would have a site that comes out of one of these big rezonings might already have that general disposition approval. So right, yeah.
Sally, I wasn't here during this board's approval of the rezoning.
All right, thank you, Jay. I just wanted to quickly close out, but before I do, firstly, thank you again to our HPD colleagues for joining us this evening and setting this out. Clearly, there's a lot of questions that we have, and certainly looking forward to remaining engaged with you, particularly on that community outreach bit. Just coming back to kind of the initial ask that you all put towards us in regards to next steps working with us. We can come back to you. I know, William, you said you had an initial kind of stakeholder mapping. I can follow up with you, but if that can be shared with us and we can kind of see, and we'll ask, amongst the community board and can help provide that list of organizations and kind of networks and things that should be involved, but also within that identifying some opportunities that would be helpful for you to table at in the coming, again, probably from January moving forward. And I guess within those conversations, the planning for the actual workshop as well. So clearly it's kind of a lot of different bits and pieces, but we'll certainly remain engaged with you, and I'll follow up with you probably tomorrow on next steps and all of that. So
Awesome. Sounds fantastic.
great. Thank you again, and have a good evening.
Thank you,
Thank you
CB12,
so
for
much.
having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we now have on the agenda a presentation from Inwood Legal Action. So we have here Cheryl and Paul, who will speak on local law 98. 78, excuse me.
Of 2021.
Okay, so they're just gonna take a moment to set up. Let's see. There we go. Yep, we should be able to. Should be there. Okay, got it.
There are a couple of websites.
Not a
we
problem.
need to include, so I'm gonna.
Go ahead.
First and then get started.
Not a problem. So I'll also make sure that you can And on that screen, so you're aware, there's a co-host privileges. So once you're sorted, you should be able to just share the screen,
Okay.
and then members online should be able to see the presentation. That's what I have at least. Cool. Not very tech savvy.
You're my kind of people.
Huh?
You're my kind of people.
I at work I had to call the IT guy. I was like, why can't I see the screen?
We're work situation, we're a small nonprofit,
Mhm.
but we do a lot of on-screen presentations, or people come with PowerPoints.
Yeah.
Animations. I'm assure you, it's happened without planning. If anything in the future I do, there will be at least one significantly younger person at the staff. He's wonderful for this.
But I will tell you that I mean, I'm not that young, but not all young people are good with tech, because I surely not.
Not all people, but on the basics, I'm probably ahead of my contemporaries. But some of the more detailed stuff, it's just not, you know, but they took the time to study and shit.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, goodness.
We might have screwed this
And
up.
their social media, but that's.
One second. Do you need
Here it
some
is.
help? Oh, yeah.
Okay.
should be
Yeah,
good.
I often need help. So.
Okay,
Sorry.
no worries. And so if you go to the, on the Zoom window.
Yep.
On there should be, at the bottom, it should say share screen.
Okay.
Not there.
Yeah, the little icon.
Yeah,
with the
there
book
you go.
Right there.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
there you go. And so you can pick the presentation.
Pick the presentation. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, that's, mm-hmm.
There, I'm
This is
sorry.
gonna
Yes.
be useful for the future too.
We're
This was
learning
a piece of
together.
Training I needed.
That's
There you go.
Yeah, I wish I
Oh,
had.
it's it was already sharing. Anyway, all right, I'm sorry. Hi, everybody. I'm Cheryl Pam, co-chair of Inwood Legal Action. I'm here with my friend Paul Epstein, who's also the co-chair of Inwood Legal Action, which was part of the Inwood rezoning fight. And we're also a member of a citywide coalition known as the Racial Impact Study Coalition, which fought for the enactment of Local Law 78 of 2021. And the Racial Impact Study Coalition is an association of groups from all of the boroughs. So not-for-profits like Municipal Art Society, Regional Planning Association, ANHD, and then we have tenant associations and community organizations like ours. And these are all people who are concerned about rezonings and their effects on displacement, in particular, racialized displacement that we are seeing. Another big not-for-profit that was a part of our group was the Churches United for Fair Housing. So let me move forward on this. How do I move forward?
You can scroll down, it looks like. Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
Mhm.
correct. So the law came about because of all of the rezonings by Bloomberg and de Blasio that weren't turning out to give communities such happy endings, like in Willits Point, where a lot of local businesses were faced with the prospect of shutting down after being open for decades. Then there's gentrification that people are afraid of. In Inwood, the gap between actual median rents and median asking rents started to diverge sharply in 2012, right around the time that there was a lot of talk of doing a rezoning. We also saw in Greenpoint, Williamsburg, between 2000 and 2015, because those areas were rezoned more than once, there was a huge decrease in the Latino population of around 15,000, yet there was an overall total population increase of 20,000. So these fears were, I think, real, justified by what was going on. So in Inwood, you guys might remember Northern Manhattan is not for sale. We fought for a more just rezoning. And one of our core demands was that Inwood affordable housing be built. Well, what was that? that meant that it had to be affordable to the most vulnerable households in our district. And yet what we were seeing was projects were requiring a minimum household income of $65,000 when our median household income was $40,000. So you're cutting out half of the community already with this so-called new housing. So the city really kind of ignored our comments, and we were saying all throughout the process that the city should be looking at the effects of its plans on the protected classes. So that would be Latino households, Black households, and we were also concerned about small businesses. Some of them were forced to close even before the rezoning was enacted. So this was a big issue. And when they passed the rezoning altogether, we decided to fight in state court. We won at the Supreme Court level, and then at the appellate division, when the city appealed, the appellate division told us that this wasn't the place to have that kind of fight.
But the appellate division didn't just say, hey, you lose. They actually included something interesting in their opinion, a message that if we wanted the kind of studies that we sued over to be required, we should take our argument to our legislative body, in other words, the city council. So our membership in the Racial Impact Study Coalition now became more urgent. We became one of the most active members to help develop and pass Local Law 78 that was enacted in June of 2021. So what is Local Law 78? What's in it? Well, the key is it makes valuable information readily accessible to anyone on all communities in the city, not just in Inwood or Washington Heights. Information communities can use both to make better decisions about development and rezonings, including the one that HPD was just presenting. It doesn't have to involve a unit. And to advocate for their own neighborhood plans and investments, so you don't have to wait for a rezoning. Developers or the city that propose rezonings above certain thresholds must disclose key information about their projects and affected communities in racial equity reports. For example, they have to include, for housing projects, the number of units by rent and incomes needed to afford those rents, as well as community data for context. DCP and HPD must maintain an online data tool, the Equitable Development Data Explorer, otherwise known as EDDI, that we'll show you in a minute. But diverse community activists, really anyone, can use the EDDI for advocacy, education, planning, or research. And coming back to the racial equity reports, developers or the city cannot use any data source they want to cherry pick favorable community information for the reports. The required community data must be drawn from the EDDI. So everyone, developers, the city, community activists, we're all working from the same data. We and others in the Racial Impact Study Coalition saw that it was critical for fair reporting.
So this is a little bit of cheerleading about the law. We really feel that it is a step toward democratizing land use processes in the city, because before the law, and in our problem, we couldn't get basic information such as what were the rents going to be charged in the new developments that you were proposing. So the stuff that you see going up now over on 10th Avenue, we still don't know exactly what the rents are going to be charged. We have some generic information, but we don't have the details. But if we had had the details back then, maybe we wouldn't have gone to court. Maybe we would have tried to sit down with our council member and work out something that was more inclusive for the community, and that would create housing opportunities for some of the lower income households in our community. And so this is what this law changes. It's kind of nerdy, but it's giving you information that you need to make better decisions and to push for your own plan. So we have this law because of the citywide racial impact study coalition that worked for several years, developing the text of the law and lobbying the council. Are you going to talk about this?
Yeah. So let's dive a little deeper into the EDDI, which Cheryl's going to bring up. in a minute, and while she's bringing that up, I'll give you a quick overview. Oh, here it is, got it up quickly, good. So it's basically got two parts. Most of it's gonna be in the community data, and which is for every community district. Technically, it's by Puma level data for census nerds, so it approximates the community districts. I come very, very close to ours. EDI provides data in 5 major categories. Demographics, you can see them along the left side of the screen. Demographics, household economic security, housing affordability, quality and security, quality of life and access to opportunity, and housing production. And most of that data is not just provided for the community as a whole, but also by race and ethnicity. So you can see in that table that Cheryl has up now.
So here, right, for example, here's households by AMI band in our community district. So you can see that 26% are at less than 30% of AMI, but then we can break it down by race. So among Asian households, it's 21%. Among Black non-Hispanics, it's 24%. For Hispanic households, it's 33.4%. And for white non-Hispanic households, just 12.5% are at less than 30% of the area median income. So this kind of information you can use like on this project to figure out what we really need in our community. So there's more to it. Go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah. Oh no, that was a good example. The interesting thing, with all the hemming and hawing, they were giving on AMIs, and
It's here.
It's here,
It's all here.
and other people at HPD as well as people at city planning maintain this database. So they have their own people, their own agency who help keep this up, and they're required by law to maintain it, by the way, and update it every year. So the entity also features the displacement risk map. You go back to the map, and you'll see that this is actually broken down by smaller geographic areas closer to actual neighborhoods. For city data nerds, it's at the NTA level, which stands for neighborhood tabulation area. But basically, this is closer to neighborhood levels. And you'll see that the displacement risk map sets a risk level based on a displacement risk index.
And when parents are more active with the school and their children, the school is more successful. So we here are asking today,
Can you mute yourself, please?
change to happen to benefit.
Okay, go ahead.
That
Yeah, no, I think she accidentally
She
unmuted
just did.
herself. Yeah,
She just
okay,
did.
go ahead, sorry.
okay. So there's 5. The displacement risk map basically breaks down every neighborhood, sometimes clusters of neighborhood in the city, into one of 5 levels of displacement risk. And you can see by color coded, the darker the color, the higher the displacement risk. And we here in northern Manhattan are at what they call the higher. It's not the highest, it's the higher, the second quintile, the second highest level of displacement risk. They have a formula, we won't go into it here, unless you have no questions about it. They have a carefully worked out formula, which is actually described on that website. There's a place you could look at methodology and what's behind the data. And just to say, yeah, there we got it. There's a whole section on that. But when we were working with HPD and DCP on this, they gave us various possibilities for how they would work out the displacement risk index. And we asked them to test it out. We came up with some ideas on testing it out against past eviction records in the various parts of the city. And so that's what they did. And they ended up with a formula that matches eviction data pretty closely to, of the 3 or 4 formulas they came up with one that matched very well with eviction history. So we're pretty confident that this is a pretty good index for displacement risk. So as noted before, EDI is a required data source for the racial equity reports. And people don't have to wait for rezonings to be proposed. Community board members, other community activists can use the EDI data proactively to support the need for local plans that you want to propose, can support capital investments or other community improvements.
I have no idea where the
Oh,
PowerPoint went.
Let's see. Check the edge. So the little, yeah. There you go. Oh, you want to go back to the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
So if you go, you can minimize that top screen there. So it looks like, yeah, hold on. Whoop. Okay, X that out. And then share screen again.
Okay.
And then see if we can.
Find the PowerPoint.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. I don't know why that's open.
Well, we will,
No, hold on, we can find it. Just here, let me see if I can. If you go to the top.
Yep.
To the tabs at the top. Or you were just on the screen. The My Webinars Zoom. Oh no, that's the other one. Sorry. There's like so many windows. I'm losing track. The other, no, X that out. Yeah. There was a separate Zoom screen. There we go. You see those tabs? Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm.
all right.
And you can just like scroll down.
We'll go back to page
And then you, I think,
9.
and you just have to share your screen again.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, really?
yeah, because you stopped sharing.
Okay.
So it's displaying here, but for those online, they cannot
Right.
see it. So if you go back to the Zoom icon. No, X that. Yeah. No, don't leave. Don't. I think there was another one where my face was on it. Yes. Hold on, I think you just.
There you go.
Yeah, share your screen.
Sorry, I'm not used to using it.
Okay, there you go. Yep.
Forgive me, everyone.
Okay, everyone, yeah, it's back on. There you go.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the racial equity reports. That's the other requirement in this law. It's a disclosure requirement for developers when they submit a land use application of a certain size. I think it's 50,000 square feet for new residential, and then 250,000 for manufacturing. But this is for people doing a land use application. And you might recall the HPD people saying, oh, no, we're not going through ULURP for this big project on 9th Avenue. So if they were going through ULURP, they would be required to do a racial equity report. And the racial equity report would answer a lot of the questions, for example, that you have, such as, is it really providing inwood affordable housing, or is it going to provide market rate housing? And you will get even more information to figure out of the racial and ethnic groups, who's going to be most advantaged or relatively advantaged in terms of accessing these new housing opportunities. So that's the benefit of the racial equity report. I'm going to show you one of the reports from East Harlem. It's a project.
The Timbal Terrace?
Timbali Terrace, yeah, do you know where it
excuse
is?
me. Now I just see the tab open, so if you go back to, it's hard to explain from there. No, you just open a separate tab. But back to, yeah, that one right there with, no, hold on, just exit that out again.
Well, okay, I stopped screen sharing, but that's okay. Let me I'm just not used to this.
No, all good, all good. There's a lot of different windows.
There are.
I'm losing track too.
Oh, are you?
No, I don't have it here, but let me see if I can
Okay.
come over and help you.
Yeah. No worries. Sorry. It wasn't Google. Yeah, just there. I guess I just go there. We might have to go again, it might have been closed out. And you might have to pull the report again, yeah. Oh, but it could be here. Here it is.
Oh, there you go. And then the presentation's also there too. Mhm. And then let me get you back.
Yeah,
to sharing your screen.
I'm sorry, guys. Too many screens laying on top of screens.
Mhm.
I get.
I hate that.
I hit the arrow. This one. When I go back.
I'll hit expand it.
Yeah, and then.
See, we're both learning.
Oh my God, it's so pathetic.
We are both learning. No, all good. So here, sharing the screen, and then I can go here and join this.
Yeah, there it is. There's this other report. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And I
up
can make it
there.
bigger. Oh, thank you.
Yep, and then when you're ready to go back to the report or the presentation. Think we've got it. There we go.
What's the location on Tim Valley Terrace?
So Tim Valley Terrace is not in our community, it's in East Harlem, but this is just to show you a sample, report.
No, that's just to help me get real.
It's in East
I'm-
Harlem,
I'm
it's
around-
in
no, I'm
Community
around
District
Harlem.
11. So this report, as you can see, it's voluminous, it's 80 pages, and it provides a lot of detail, it describes who's in the community, what their incomes are, the different demographic characteristics of the people, and some of the housing needs that they have. And then here's the critical piece. This is what you get with every racial equity report. Now we're seeing very specifically how many units are affordable to the formerly homeless and will be reserved for them. How many units are affordable to extremely low income households at 30% of AMI or less? Very low income households at 50% of AMI or less, and low income households. And this is a very unusual project because it's 100% affordable, truly affordable for working class households. It's low income households. So this is what the kind of information that they're always capable of giving us for every single project, and for a lot of the development that's happening in Community District 12, we're not getting that information because technically it either happened before this law was passed, or they're doing what they did on 9th Avenue. They previously did a ULURP, and so they don't have to do a land use application again. So it's important to consider they have the information. Most of the work is subsidized in some way. In some way, they're getting some kind of assistance for most of these projects, and they can give it to you. They can give you this information. And so what you can do with this information is you can compare it to what the characteristics are of households in the community, which is also included in this report. I'm just going down to the community profile, which they pull out of the EDDI. So we saw, right, we saw that more than half of the units in that project were for extremely low income households. And in this community district, only 44% of households are extremely low income. So that's a project that's really creating housing opportunities for that income band. And I'll show you where, so you can see all this data, right? Here you go. These are the extremely low income households in this community, in this community district. Right, this is right, share of households in here. Yes. So in East Harlem, you see it's 44%. And if you go back to the table that shows you the breakout of the units, you'll see that 55% of the new units are affordable to that lowest income band. So if you add the 29 and the 26. So that's, you know, one way you can use the data. You can do a similar just plain old math, looking at the same numbers by race, because the racial equity report will show you, for example, the percentage of Black households that are ELI or extremely low income. And you can see the percentage of Hispanic households that are ELI. And so in this district, it's the Hispanic households that have the largest proportion of extremely low income households, right? So they're relatively disadvantaged to all other groups which have a lower proportion of extremely low income households. But it gives you a fast way to know what you really want to know when you get down to it. Who's going to be hurt? Who's going to benefit? So that's why we're hoping that these will be a part of everybody's conversation when it comes down to deciding, hey, is this project good? What do we want to see out of this project that's happening on the 9th Avenue? So let me go back. So that's Timbali Terrace, and I wasn't able to get any right. I'm trying to get to
The slides again.
the slide. And
Yeah,
I
it
know
should-
it's here, but there's all these things on the screen. that
There's
I
a
don't-
way to minimize that that black bar.
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's what I'm trying to, I just forgot to do it. You can kind of slide up or.
Oh, really? Scroll over.
Yeah, let me, but I see the presentations just on the other tab within that same window
Okay.
here. No, hold on, just leave that one up.
I don't know how to get rid of all of the things on the screen. That's why I tried to come a little early. Because I'm confused. Let's see. Because, this one does.
Right.
That's better. All right. So you just click on whichever one it is. Yeah.
Okay, so
So, we got-
that's slide 10.
yeah.
Thank you, sorry.
By the way, while Cheryl's doing that, I'll just note that the racial equity reports are not part of the environmental review. You might think that's where they come. They're actually kind of additional information for ULURP. They come a certain number of days, usually 9 days. They're due 9 days after certification in city planning. Some projects are due 19 days after certification. I think it has to do with whether it's a landmarks involved project.
Well, we get this information early on.
Mhm.
We get it before we have to do any voting and make any decision on a project. We get it, we're supposed to be getting it early enough to change what's in the cards.
Change the trends.
Yeah. So these slides basically just describe, ratios, the ratios that I did, talk about. I talked about like the affordability. So 55% of the units were for ELI households, and they were 44% of all households. So if it's greater than one, it means that there's some housing opportunities there for that income band. And you do the same analysis using the same data by race and ethnicity, and you can see that, yes, for Black, extremely low income households, there's some housing opportunity, but it's greater for Asian and white low income households because there are far fewer of them. And the group that actually has the greatest need also has the lowest relative opportunity, which is Hispanics in this district for that particular project. But this is just a fast, easy metric that you guys can use with the data from the RER to decide whether you should push for more deep affordability or some other kind of concession that would create opportunities for the households that you want to advocate for. All right, Paul, you want to?
Okay, well, as I said before, community activists don't have to wait for rezonings to use the EDI. You can use it proactively to support that. The information on our community is there in the EDI all the time.
Yeah.
So you can use it proactively to support community improvements the community board or others are want to see happen. This fold out poster. So for for those of us for times when we don't have technology available or we have problems with the Zoom, we have this other training tool which we will be using.
Yes,
Yeah.
I didn't bring any, sorry.
Maybe we can leave one here
Can't
in
give it to the guys
community board
who are in
office.
remote, but
Yeah, this is.
we have plenty of them.
We will, what we want to do is, we are going to be having public meetings on how to take advantage of this law and use the EDI. So we'd love to work with you to do that. We have more of these and they are going to be coming out in Spanish in early 2024.
Yeah, right now they're only English, but the
Mhm.
translation is in process.
But this basically explains the whole law, the story of it, why we need it and how we can use it to our advantage.
So we've got a little description of the major parts of the EDI, the kinds of questions that can be answered, the displacement risk map. And in the center are 3 examples of kind of possible things you might use it for. You don't always have to use it for housing. So the
When the
first
community
story-
district does the statement of district needs.
Exactly,
you
yeah.
can pull a ton of
Right.
data, a
Amazing.
ton of indicators from here.
Yeah,
It's all computed for you from census and city administrative data by the professionals in planning and HPD. You don't have to do any of the work.
Already done, yeah.
we already got a lot of work done for you. These are 3 examples of different community issues that somebody, working through the process of somebody looking up the data on the EDI, doing some of their own little calculations and tables and using that to then try to get people on board for community action. So that's the idea, the title of the poster, Stories plus Data equals Power, from the idea of people's lived experiences.
It's really neat.
People's lived experiences are valid to them. From your own experience, your community, on your block, your neighborhood, of what the issues are, but getting officials to believe it or to act on it's pretty tough. And you validate your lived experience with the data.
With the data.
And EDI gives you the data to validate the lived experience and try and get more attention to the real needs of your community and the real solutions.
Getting like health statistics, quality of life statistics.
Yeah, it's super helpful.
Education. So.
So we're as Cheryl was saying, we are planning to do, we don't have them, we don't have a timetable yet, we don't have a schedule. A number of training sessions or community meetings just around this. Just around the EDI, using the poster and with the hope of getting more people using it.
Yeah.
We're actually a Manhattan community partner, so we'll be doing it probably more in Northern Manhattan because that's where we are, but also other parts of Manhattan. Manhattan Community Partner for the Racial Impact Study Coalition for this. We've got a partner in every borough.
Nice.
And there's a grant to make these happen. So it'll help pay for our expenses.
Maybe we could do it as part of a meeting to come up with a plan for this parcel.
That can certainly be, yeah, I like that idea. We can't vote on anything because we don't have quorum, but I like that suggestion.
Yeah, you've got a project that people can be interested in.
Using
Exactly.
that for this.
Say, okay, guys, look up in the EDI what we are, and did they said they're gonna put all that information on a board. How does
It's
that
there.
track?
Yeah,
The information's
yeah.
there.
Thank you both, for the presentation. Incredibly insightful. I learned quite a bit. Clearly I was, did not know much about this, so really appreciate you both taking the time. Just a question, I said there's a question online from one of the members, but just a question in regards to, because my understanding is if only if the development is going through a ULURP process that they must produce the racial equity report. Now, because this site is not going through the ULURP, we can only recommend that they do it.
So it's HPD.
Yes, and so my question then is, from your experience, I guess my question is in terms of timing. They're looking to have this RFP as an example. They said what spring, I would imagine. I'm due to follow up with them tomorrow. Um, and so I wonder if in their conversations, and then this was a question I should have asked them and I didn't have a chance to, but can follow up is, around how they've engaged with our city council woman, but also with Manhattan Borough President, and have, from their perspective as the electeds, did they bring this up? Have they asked for this? So there's a bit of a follow-up that needs to happen. But I guess my question for both of you is around the timing and how does this fit into everything else? I kind of see this as a beginning step to help inform those discussions. But just wanted to get, sense from both of you.
The Eddy, which is
Mm.
the data tool,
Correct.
is the piece that will inform discussions, right? Because it has all these indicators that we can pull out. It has information about how close we are to parks, how long it takes to walk to the subway. Premature mortality for infants, asthma rates. It has information about test scores. It has a lot of other contextual information that we might want to consider as part of this project, in addition to, evictions, households by different AMI bands, all the normal stuff that we want to know that might help us put together like our ideal vision for this project. But the racial equity report would come when pretty much a lot of the chips are in place and they kind of have a clearer sense of what the project really will be. Then they can say, okay, we're going to produce 500 units and 100 of them are going to be affordable at, 50% of AMI or below. And 50 will be affordable at, 120% of AMI or whatever it is they think they're going to do. But it's at that point that you'll see the numbers clearly. And it doesn't sound like it's all that much, but during the Inwood rezoning, we didn't get any of that information.
Yeah.
That's why people were going crazy. We didn't get that information.
And it's really, this is not a big burden on land use applicants to prepare, since they can draw all the community data from the Eddy and all the project data, they better know for their own project.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the information's there, it's just how they display it and write it up.
Exactly.
It's not like having to do another environmental impact statement.
Yep.
Super helpful. Thank you. I see Jay's hand. Jay?
I just had a few questions. Thank you for sharing this. I didn't know about this. This is great. Is local law 70 only attached to the ULURP process? Just following up on Marielle's question.
There's I'm looking at page 9 of the law itself. There's a series of criteria for which projects must produce racial equity reports. So it would normally be a project that has to go through ULURP.
But it's not legally attached to ULURP. So say they, how they're considering doing comprehensive planning and reforming our whole planning process, and that might lead to the end of ULURP, this law will still stand. Right. And so I would advocate that communities demand racial equity reports for any project because they have it. They have the information. They know when they're going to develop a building, what the rents are going to be. And they can tell you who can afford those rents very easily.
Okay. So you answered my other question. Like, can we just ask them to do this? Like, they shouldn't have a problem now?
Well, they might not like it. For example, you notice that they didn't commit to giving us a racial equity report. They want to do things when they're legally required to do it. Otherwise, they don't want to be bothered. But now that we know they have all of this information, why don't they just do it?
They wouldn't be able to do it until, go ahead, Jay.
No, I mean, to that point, we could just talk to our city council member who has to approve them, right? And
that would be its strongest leverage. If Carmen has to approve it, then Carmen should demand a report.
But this project is also, this 9th Avenue project is a little different because they're coming to you and asking you what you want. That doesn't usually happen.
Well, it often happens with city-owned sites.
Well, this is in my opinion, this is a great opportunity to
Yeah.
create some homeowners.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah,
and it
so
sounded like there's an opportunity to input into that during the process. Sorry,
Anyway,
go ahead.
sorry.
just for the do you know how long it takes them to do a racial equity report?
Well, normally, it shouldn't take very long. In fact, the due date for most of them, for ones that go through ULURP, the due date for most of them is 9 days after city planning certifies the project. So that's the very beginning of ULURP. So you've got it before the community board's going to consider, have their hearings and consider, how they want to vote on particular.
And HPD creates a template that makes it easy for these developers to do the report. So they're pulling standardized metrics from the EDI, the Equitable Development Data Explorer, and they're filling in the text that they're basically directed to fill in. If you go on look at the slide deck that we gave you and go to the New York City zoning application portal, and then filter on racial equity reports required, and look at some of the reports on the website, and you'll see that in general, they have a standard format and they're providing interesting information. But the more, in my opinion, the more interesting reports are always the ones where you see the project has a deep commitment to affordability. They are concerned about the people who live in the district and what their needs are. And it's clear that they're providing deeply affordable housing. There are other projects where they're like, yeah, whatever, we're going to do, an art center, and then we're going to have 10 units for the formerly homeless and the rest is market rate. That's not so interesting, but at least they're disclosing information that before this law, they didn't really care to disclose.
So just one quick last question on that. Just to be clear, the only way they can do this is if they have a proposal from a developer, or can they just do it outright right now at this very moment?
They can do this, HPD can do this report once they have a sense of what you guys want built at that site.
Yeah, I think
And who the players will be, like what kind of developers will be involved, then they can do the racial equity report.
Yeah, I think they need the actual breakdown of how many apartments are going to be at what size apartments and what income level.
They need more input, like it's clear this is like, nobody knows what's going to be built, or we don't know. But they need to have a sense of what's going to be built, and then they do the report.
Okay, so they need proposals either way. So they're going to wait for us to do this process, and
yeah,
no, but
we can't require it under the RFP process when they have to request those proposals. Can't we just ask them to add?
I mean, you could ask anything. This is a strange project, right? Because the way, like when we were doing the law, we were thinking of projects where we really didn't have a lot of input on them. And so this was a way to give us a little bit of leverage, because before the public review process really took off, we would at least have that information about who was going to be able to afford those apartments. And then we could go and push for something different. But the way this 9th Avenue project is happening, you're doing your input first, then in theory, they're going to craft some kind of RFP. And that's when, what this project might be will start to take some shape. And then at some point when the developer comes in, that's when you'll probably have enough information to do a racial equity report.
Actually,
because they have to fund it, they have, they have to preliminarily agree to things.
Potentially, this is something this is not required by the law, but something you could ask for. When the RFP is done, before the responses even come back, I mean, you could have, in fact, maybe you should want this to be done simultaneously with the RFP. Have HPD say, if we get responses, if the RFP is going to have stuff like what AMI levels they're showing for and that kind of thing. So they could probably do some kind of pro forma um, uh, profiles of possible projects and say, if it comes in at this level, here's what the racial equity report looks like. If it comes in at this other level or distribution of departments said, here's what the racial equity report will look like. So it's really that kind of, it's fairly automatic. And while there is some stuff in there, we didn't go over that, but there are places, a couple of places for the applicant to write narrative. And that gives them a chance to try and spin it, you know? But the nice thing is, if the developer or somebody else is trying, the city is trying to spin the narrative to make it look really community friendly, you could look at the data and say, that's not right.
Yeah, this is not.
So you can ignore the narrative and just go right to the data, the kinds of ratios that Cheryl was showing you. And that's it.
Jade,
And-
is this the last question? Just because it is
Yeah,
not.
this is the last question. Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, what is the actual threshold for a project to have to be doing a racial equity report? Like,
I've got it right here.
a
Let me-
number of units?
There's a number of things.
Square footage.
A
50,000.
citywide amendment to the zoning resolution affecting 5 or more community districts, historic districts, involving at least 4 city blocks, but the ones we're most likely would be an acquisition or disposition of land to facilitate non-residential project containing at least 50,000 square feet of floor area, an acquisition or disposition of land to facilitate a residential project other than a residential project consisting of a building to be preserved, provided that such equity report shall only be required related to a building in such project containing at least 50,000 square feet of floor area. So that's the basic thing, 50,000 square feet for housing, 50,000 square feet. And for non-housing, it's 200,000 square feet of non-residential for projects that don't have housing.
Isn't that 250?
It's 200.
Oh,
Yeah, they keep changing, so the numbers, we might remember the wrong numbers, but I'm reading it here.
okay.
So there's a number of thresholds. The most basic thing for housing projects, if there's a ULURP that either grants the applicant an FAR increase of 50,000 residential square feet or more, that'll be required. Or if it's for an entire project, it's 50,000 square feet of floor area, of residential floor area, that'll be required.
And
So
just so you, like,
Not
this
giant project.
This Ninth Avenue project, for example, is a 93,737 square foot lot. And most of it is going to be housing. So if this were going through the usual ULURP process, this would have a required.
Yeah.
And that's R8, so it could be 20 stories or so, right? So that could be 20 times the 8,000, the 90,000 square feet?
Yeah.
Well, it won't be,
It's
it won't be
going
all,
up, so it's
say
gonna be
half,
huge. It's
say
a
half
huge
the lot,
project.
half the lot is used for housing and the other is used for, so that would be 40,000 square feet times 20, it's
Yeah.
well over the threshold.
Yeah.
Great.
It's
Thank,
just really
thank,
short.
thank you
Yeah,
both.
it does.
I see Tanisha has a hand up. Tanisha, you're the last hand. On this, please, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think 50,000 feet is the floor, is the bare minimum.
That's
But it's just,
for ULURP projects with housing, 50,000 square feet of housing or more requires the racial equity report.
Yeah, like I said, I think 50,000 feet is the bare minimum. So that would mean that they would build just enough housing to check that box. And, you know, I was one of the people who fought the 145 project in Harlem that was going to displace thousands of residents. And it's still something that we're going to have to fight with a new council person coming in. But I also know that the community board and the council members of the district have a lot to say. And if we say no, it doesn't happen. Usually it doesn't happen. If the community board and the council, the community and the city council is against the project, you know, no, they have to get by us first. I just, again, want to say that I don't trust them. And they kept throwing around AMI, like, you know, they're checking a box, and that's not what we need. We need housing in Washington Heights where people can afford to live. Because if that building goes up and it's mostly market rate, that is going to displace a lot of our neighbors, and that's not what we want.
We're with you, Tanisha. Totally agree.
Thank you, Tanisha. Thank you both for your time. Really helpful. Let's stay in touch and
Yeah.
certainly welcome hearing more
If-
about those
if you've
workshops,
got-
and then we
if
can
you've got,
take it from there.
Are any groups that anybody works with on the committee that might be interested in
I
a
think there'll
training
probably be quite a
session?
few,
Let us
yeah,
know. We
for
can
sure.
arrange.
For sure. I now have, Cheryl, I have your contact information,
Yeah.
so we'll stay in touch on that. Thank you. We have old business. I'm assuming there's none. I don't have any. Any new business? I'm assuming there's none.
Yes, I have some new business. I would
Raise
like
your hand.
to recommend that if not next meeting or in February or March, that we have the residents to preserve public housing come on and tell us about their work and what they are doing to fight the privatization of public housing in New York City. They are the residents to preserve public housing. They are a grassroots organization of tenants and tenant presidents who are every day fighting, you know, the war on public housing. And I would like to recommend that they come and do a presentation for us.
Thanks, Tanisha. So we can't vote on anything, but I think that's completely fine. Let's follow up offline, and then we can schedule, maybe they could join like for the January or February meeting. We certainly want more presentations, and that just not only comes to you, but to anyone kind of with the networks and organizations and things. We do want them to come more often to the meetings and present. So thank you for that. With that, well, we can't officially close because there's no quorum, but thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and see you in the new year. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.
Good meeting.